The title of today's training presentation is Blocking Charging 2. It is easier, yet it is harder. We get a little bit more in depth to blocking charging. This is the sequel to our original blocking charging series. So here's today's agenda. Our first chapter is Back to Basics. We find out what the good book says about blocks and charges. Second chapter, Ride and Decide. We're going to look at 13 plays, and we're going to allow you to make a decision. Do you have a block on that play, or do you have a charge on that play? Chapter 3, we're going to look at the 13 plays and break them down. And we're going to decide by rule, what do we have? And the final chapter is a summary of what we learned. Let's get back to basics and find out what the good book says about blocks and charges. Here's the foundation. To be able to make accurate rulings on blocks and charges, we must be able to understand arguably the most fundamental and important rule in basketball. That rule is guarding. Guarding. Guarding helps us decide whether a defender, guard as you will probably find it in a lot of rule books, and defender you may find in some other rule books, is legal or not legal. If and when illegal contact occurs. Funny thing about blocking and charging, they are both forms of illegal contact. Blocking is illegal contact by the defense, while charging is illegal contact by the offense. Excuse me, let me write a note to self. Here's a funny thing about rules. More specifically in this training presentation, are basketball rules. Isn't it funny how the rules for guarding, blocking, and charging actually begin with the guarding rule? Basketball rules are pretty funny the way they overlap into other rules. This is why we are going back to basics. So let's go back to the guarding rule, because blocks and charges begin with guarding. Here's where guarding can be found in the most popular rule books. Rule 423 for the National Federation High School Rulebook, Rule 10.4 for NCAA Women, Rule 4.17 for NCAA Men, and for both NBA and WNBA under Rule Roman numeral 2, number 2, under the section entitled Basic Principles. If you are a fan of ours, you understand that we have created and gone through guarding twice before in 2 prior presentations on guarding. But due to the fact that blocks and charges, the definition of them are predicated on guarding, it probably would be a good idea to go through guarding briefly for a third time. Guarding, quite simply, is the act of legally placing the body in the path of an offensive opponent. Every player is entitled to a spot on the playing court, provided that such player gets there first without illegally contacting an opponent. I want to read this sentence because this sentence is going to come into play when we view plays. A player who extends an arm, shoulder, hip, or leg into the path of an opponent is not considered to have a legal position if contact occurs. Put that in your memory bank for future reference. Article 2 gives us the requirements of how a defender attains legal guard position. 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, and the front of the guard's torso shall face the opponent. Article 3 gives us the requirements of how a defender that has obtained legal guard position maintains legal guard position. Pretty much, guards can do anything after they have obtained legal guard position to maintain it, other than cause the illegal contact. The guarding rule sets the foundation for making decisions and rulings should illegal contact occur. And one of these decisions is going to be whether we have a blocking foul or charging foul. Let's take note that there are three types of opponents that we can guard: an opponent with the ball, a stationary opponent without the ball, and a moving opponent without the ball. This is defined in Articles 4 and 5 of the guarding rule. Blocking and charging can be found under the following rules in the following rulebooks. In National Federation High School, Rule 4-7. NCAA Women, Rules 10.7, 10.8. NCAA Men, Rules 4.5 and 4.7. For NBA and WNBA, Rule Roman numeral 2C under the Basic Principles section. Again, this image is the blocking charging rule itself from National Federation High School. Article 1 details blocking. Blocking is the illegal personal contact by the defense. Article 2 details charging. Charging is illegal personal contact by the offense. Take note in Article 2, it details by pushing or moving into an opponent's torso. That'll become important as this presentation moves on. Subsections A through D detail what the offense and defense can and cannot do. All these subsections are very important. The one that's going to come into play a lot is subsection B. If a guard has obtained a legal guarding position, the player with the ball shall get head and shoulders past the torso of the defensive player. If contact occurs on the torso of the defensive player, the dribbler is responsible for the contact. We'll see D come up a lot as we view plays further in this presentation, and we definitely will see A. Isn't it interesting how many times legal guarding position appears in the blocking charging rule? Now do you see why we have to go back to guarding in order to make decisions about blocking and charging? If we're just looking at this image of the blocking charging rule, we count once in subsection A, legal guarding position. We count once, subsection B, legal guarding position. So it appears twice in the blocking charging rule for National Federation High School. So we must be able to make accurate decisions on our defenders. We must know when they obtain legal guard position and if they maintain it if and when illegal contact occurs. As basketball officials, we must referee the defense. The eyes of most defenders will be on the ball handler dribbler, or BHD, as you will see it further in this presentation. Thus, it is not necessary to ball watch, for the defenders will tell you the location of the ball. We must always know the guarding status of our defenders. To make accurate rulings on block charge plays comes down to one question: what did the defender do wrong? Right in the side. Do you have a block or charge? I'm going to take a short break. While I take a break, we have 13 plays for you to decide if we have a block or charge. Once you've made your decision in each of these plays, we will return to find out, are you a good judge of contact, and are you ready to make accurate rulings and decisions on blocks and charges?
Closely watched in the second half, too, after just picking up her third person.
Incredibly impactful third foul called, and Johnson draws her fourth charge.
Wow. That one's on Fagan. Let's take a look at the foul at after Fagan picked up her third foul. So 2 on Cardoso, 3 on Fagan. Hits, barrels in, and is going to draw the foul.
A player that joined the team. Huge loss for Utah.
And Lynn Roberts said there was a grieving process her team had to go through as Cardoso picks up her third offensive foul, and that is the 5th offensive foul that Jenna Johnson has drawn in this game.
Good pass. Hillman's got it, and a blocking foul called on Bickle. Good call. We don't have the flop call in our game like the men have, but
Had a lane and was unable to finish. Here is Jones, and that's going to be a blocking foul against Playo, the 13th foul against Arizona.
We saw that in the first half, now here in this second. Brink on an island with a smaller defender.
That's going to be a blocking foul against
She graduated from high school. Told us yesterday at their last practice she started to get a little emotional, realizing the end was near.
Well, how about the way Aries
Hediford said, wait a minute, I'm on the first side, I can get right to the rim.
O'Banner gets a 3.
And they
Miller, who hasn't been able to break the ice yet. The middle offensive foul.
So you see Nate Oates just changing the angle of that screen to try to get it more downhill. That should be an offensive foul.
And it is.
Chapter 3. By rule, we have a block, or by rule, we have a charge. Let's find out how well you know your blocks and charges. We start out this play with our defender, who initially obtains legal guard position. She has 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, and her torso is facing her opponent. Our defender maintains her legal guard position with lateral movement. The ball handler dribbler pushes through the torso of our legal guard and defender. This is a player control foul, which is correctly called by our lead official. The key to remember with making decisions on blocking fouls or charging fouls is that blocking and charging always starts with guarding. Our defender or guard obtaining a legal guarding position with 2 feet in bounds and the torso facing the opponent, and maintaining legal guarding position. In this case, our defender used lateral movement to maintain legal guard position, and as we can see, the ball handler dribbler pushed through the torso of our legal guard defender, which is the literal definition of charging. Thus, we have a player control foul on this play. So our defender initially obtains legal guard position. She has 2 feet on the playing court inbounds, and her torso is facing her opponent, which in this case is our ball handler dribbler. So far, with her movement, our primary defender maintains legal guard position. She moves laterally, right to left. It's these types of plays that we must be great judges of contact, especially when we have post players who perform spin moves. In this freeze frame, we can see that the spin of our ball handler dribbler does not cause any displacement to the defender whatsoever. She does not go through the torso of the defender. She does not use her elbow, her arm, her other elbow, or her other arm, or the ball, or any part of her body in any sort of way to displace this defender. This is a flop by our defender, and the flopping of the defender eventually causes the displacement of our ball handler dribbler. We will have our lead official correctly call a blocking foul on this play. Our defender obtains legal guard position. She has 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, and the torso is facing the opponent. After obtaining legal guard position, our defender maintains legal guard position with slight lateral movement, and she is in the path of the ball handler dribbler when the illegal contact eventually occurs. The defender is displaced by the off arm and the elbow of our ball handler dribbler. we have a player control foul, which is correctly called by our lead official. This play starts off with our primary defender obtaining a legal guard position. He is 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, and his torso is facing the opponent. In this case, this opponent is the ball handler dribbler. Our primary defender will so far maintain legal guard position with lateral movement. Eventually, our ball handler dribbler will get his head and shoulders past the torso of our primary defender. Thus, our primary defender, by rule, is considered beaten. However, we have a secondary defender who has obtained legal guard position. Our ball handler dribbler displaces our secondary defender as he goes through the chest and torso of our secondary defender. This is a player control foul, correctly called by our center official. Our defender obtains legal guard position with 2 feet on the playing court in bounds and his torso facing his opponent. We have a spin move by our ball handler dribbler, which just grazes the shoulder of our primary defender. The spin move itself does not cause the displacement of our ball handler dribbler. This is a flop as correctly indicated by our lead official. Outstanding work by our crew not to fall for this flop. Our defender obtains legal guard position. We're speaking with the gentleman at the free throw line extended. He has 2 feet on the playing court inbounds, and his torso is facing the opponent. While trying to maintain legal guard position, the defender's leg enters the path of our ball handler dribbler. By rule, the defender is no longer in legal guard position. His leg will be the catalyst for the displacement that occurs between himself and the ball handler dribbler. This is a blocking foul, correctly called by our center official. Our post defender obtains legal guard position, 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, torso facing the opponent. As our ball handler dribbler makes her post move, just after the contact, which is not the catalyst for displacing the defender, our defender falls to the floor as a result of flopping. As an official, depending on your rule set, you may have options or you may have something that your rule set explicitly tells you to call for this flopping. You may have a blocking foul as an option, which would be a correct call, a technical foul for faking the foul, or a flop warning, or a flop technical foul. The defender who we have circled here has obtained legal guard position, 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, torso facing the opponent. She maintains her legal guard position with retreating and lateral movement. Said defender is in the path of the ball handler dribbler when the illegal contact occurs. The ball handler dribbler is the catalyst for the illegal contact as she pushed into the guard's torso. This should have been ruled a player control foul, not a blocking foul. We would like our lead official to refrain, if possible, from calling fouls while looking at the back of a defender. Our defender, circled in black, has attained legal guard position. She has 2 feet on the playing court inbounds. Her torso is facing her opponent. She maintains legal guard position with retreating and lateral movement. A ball handler dribbler contacts her guard in her torso. The contact displaces the guard. This should have been a player control foul on our ball handler dribbler. Our defender obtains legal guarding position. She has 2 feet on the playing court, inbounds, and her torso is facing her opponent, the ball handler dribbler. While attempting to maintain legal guarding position, our defender moves forward into the path of our ball handler dribbler. Remember, by rule, movement is allowed by our legal guard defender as long as that movement does not cause illegal contact. Because the movement causes illegal contact, our defender is no longer in legal guarding position. The defender's forward movement into the path of our ball handler dribbler causes a displacement. And we have a blocking foul, which is correctly called by our trail official. Our primary defender, who is circled in black, has 2 feet on the playing court inbounds and his torso is facing the ball handler dribbler. He obtains legal guard position. As our ball handler dribbler drives to the lane, he will eventually get his head and shoulders past the torso of our primary defender. We refer to this as beating the primary defender. Though the ball handler dribbler has beaten the primary defender, a secondary defender just outside the restricted arc has obtained legal guard position. He has 2 feet on the playing court inbounds, and his torso is facing the ball handler dribbler. Now, because he is guarding an opponent with the ball, time and distance are not required for guarding an opponent with the ball, regardless if the opponent is stationary or moving. This is by rule. The displacement that occurs on this play is way too much contact for there to be no whistle on this play. Let's ask ourselves, what did our secondary defender do wrong? It seems like we cannot find anything that our secondary defender did wrong on this play. Thus, this should have been ruled a player control foul, not a no call. Our primary defender, who is circled in black, has obtained legal guard position. He has 2 feet on the playing court, and his torso is facing an opponent. In this case, his opponent is the ball handler dribbler. We have a secondary defender who has also attained legal guard position. He has 2 feet on the playing court, inbounds, and his torso is facing the opponent. His opponent is now the ball handler dribbler who has beaten the primary defender. As this play continues, we will see that our secondary defender extends his leg and arm into the ball handler dribbler's path. Legal guard position can be maintained as long as no part of the body extends into the path of the opponent such that it causes illegal contact. Because our secondary defender extends his leg and arm into the ball handler dribbler's path, by rule, he is considered to no longer be in legal guarding position. It is the extension of the leg and the arm that causes the displacement and the illegal contact. This foul should have been ruled a blocking foul on our secondary defender as opposed to the player control foul. Our primary defender has 2 feet on the playing court in bounds, and his torso is facing the opponent. In this case, it's the ball handler dribbler. I'll rule our primary defender has obtained legal guard position. Our primary defender will maintain legal guard position with retreating and lateral movement. While attempting to drive to the lane, our ball handler dribbler will ward off our primary defender with his off arm. This is a player control foul, which is correctly called by our center official. The last chapter. Summary. What did we learn? We learned exactly what we tried to tell you in chapter 1. The foundation of blocks and charges is the most important and fundamental rule, arguably in basketball, guarding. We must know when the defender is legal or not legal, and if and when illegal contact occurs. We know that blocking and charging are forms of illegal contact. Blocking is illegal contact by the defense. Charging is illegal contact by the offense. As we learn, charging takes place when the offensive player displaces the defensive player or the guard or the defender in the chest and torso area. To be able to accurately make rulings on blocks and charges does come down to one question. What did the defender do wrong? But in order to be able to explain what the defender did wrong or what the defender did not do wrong, we must be able to make accurate decisions on the defender themselves. Whether they obtain legal guard position, and when they obtain it, do they maintain it all the way through if and when illegal contact occurs. The only way we can do this as basketball officials is to referee the defense, which means we must not ball watch. Our defenders will tell us where the ball is located. We must always know the guarding status of our defenders. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We hope that we were able to give you some great insight, education, training, and knowledge on blocking and charging. Remember that making decisions on blocks and charges goes back to the foundation of guarding. Thank you for viewing our training presentation entitled Blocking Charging 2. It is easier, yet it is harder. We appreciate you spending part of your day or night with us. Have a great day, a great week, a great month, a great year, a great season.